Have you ever cried when nothing was actually wrong? Nothing bad happened, nobody said anything, you didn't get terrible news. You're just making tea, or folding clothes, or sitting in your car before going inside, and suddenly your eyes fill with tears. You look around, almost like someone might explain it to you. But nobody does. So you wipe your face and think, why am I crying? And maybe the strangest part isn't the crying, it's the fact that you can't explain it. Because we're used to emotions having a beginning, something happens, then we feel something. But sometimes the feeling arrives before the explanation. And sometimes the explanation happened hours ago or days ago and you simply didn't notice. Let me tell you about Arjun. His Tuesday was completely ordinary. He woke up, made tea, checked his phone, went to work. Someone made a stupid joke in the office, and he laughed. Not because it was funny, just because everyone else did. He came home in the evening, watered his plants, made dinner, watched half a video, then went to bed. Nothing terrible happened. Actually, nothing particularly interesting happened either. And that's exactly why he doesn't understand what happens next. At 10:47 that night, Arjun sat on the edge of his bed. The apartment was quiet. He could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen. He reached for his phone, stopped, and suddenly he started crying. He wasn't thinking about anything. There was no specific memory, no argument, no bad news, just tears. He looked at his reflection in the dark window, and for a moment, he didn't understand the person looking back at him. What's wrong with me? But maybe that's not the question he needed to ask. Think about how often you tell yourself, I'll deal with it later. A difficult conversation, a disappointing message, something someone said that hurt more than you admitted, a goodbye you weren't ready for. But you don't stop. You answer the message, you go to work, you make dinner, you keep talking, you keep functioning. Because there's always something else to do, so the feeling gets pushed aside, not erased, just left somewhere in the background. And sometimes hours later, when everything finally becomes quiet, that feeling comes back. Not because something new happened, because nothing is distracting you anymore. Maybe those tears weren't created that night. Maybe that night was simply the first time. You had enough silence to notice them. Here's something strange about emotions. You don't always think something and then feel it. Sometimes your body reacts first. Your chest becomes heavy, your throat tightens, your breathing changes, your eyes start burning. And then your mind arrives a few seconds late. Wait, why am I crying? We want emotions to make sense. Sadness should have a reason. Anger should have someone to blame. Fear should have something to be afraid of. But the body isn't that organized. Sometimes it reacts, and only later does the mind try to explain what happened. And sometimes the explanation doesn't come immediately. You're doing something completely ordinary. Cooking, driving, scrolling through your phone, and an old song starts playing. You've heard it 100 times, but this time, something feels different. Suddenly you're somewhere else. A room you haven't thought about in years. A school corridor, someone's old house, a summer afternoon, a person you haven't spoken to in forever. You weren't trying to remember any of it. The song simply opened a door, and something came through. That's why sometimes the reaction seems much bigger than the moment. Because you're not only reacting to the song, you're reacting to everything that song is connected to. A smell can do it, a photograph, someone's voice, even the way sunlight falls across a room. The trigger can be tiny. The feeling doesn't have to be. There are people who almost never cry when something is actually happening. They're good at keeping it together. Someone asks, "Are you okay?" And they say, "Yeah, I'm fine." And maybe they even believe it. They keep working. They help everyone else. They become the reliable one, the calm one, the person everyone calls when something goes wrong. But being good at functioning isn't the same thing as not feeling. Sometimes you can carry something for a very long time without realizing how heavy it has become. One disappointment, then another. A stressful week, a lonely evening, something you never said, something you never allowed yourself to feel, layer after layer, until one tiny thing becomes the final drop. A movie, a photograph, someone asking, "Are you okay?" And suddenly, the whole thing spills over. The moment looks small, but the weight behind it wasn't. We usually think crying means something is going wrong. But what if sometimes it's the opposite? Think about holding your fist closed. You can do it for a while, but eventually your hand gets tired. Opening it isn't weakness, it's relief. Maybe emotions can be like that too. Sometimes you've been holding yourself together for so long that finally letting something out feels like failure. But maybe your body isn't failing. Maybe it's saying, "I can't keep holding all of this right now." And that's different. Now, this part matters. Not every unexpected tear is some hidden trauma. Not every emotion is a message from your subconscious. Sometimes you're exhausted, sometimes you haven't slept enough. Sometimes you're stressed, sometimes your body is simply having a difficult day. And sometimes you genuinely don't know why you're crying. That's okay. You don't have to turn every emotion into an investigation. You don't have to sit there asking, "What childhood wound is this?" Sometimes you can simply say, "I'm crying," and let that be enough. And if crying becomes frequent, overwhelming, or starts affecting your everyday life, that's something worth talking about with someone you trust or a qualified professional. You don't have to figure everything out alone. We usually imagine the shadow as something dark: anger, jealousy, fear, the parts of ourselves we don't want anyone to see. But sometimes the things we push away are much quieter. The need to rest, the need to be cared for, the loneliness we pretend isn't there, the sadness we don't have time for, the younger version of ourselves who still wants something we've stopped asking for. Those things don't disappear because we ignore them. They simply wait. And sometimes they surface as tears. The next time it happens, don't immediately wipe your face and ask, "What's wrong with me?" Pause. Take one slow breath and ask something else. What have I been carrying lately? Or maybe, what haven't I given myself time to feel? You might find an answer, you might not. Either one is okay. Because you don't always have to solve an emotion. Sometimes you just have to give it somewhere to exist. Later that night, Arjun stopped searching for a reason. He moved to the chair beside the window. The city outside had become quiet. His tea had gone cold. The scribbles sat on the floor beside him. For once, it wasn't pointing at anything. It wasn't looking for an explanation. It simply stayed. Arjun wiped his face, and something small changed. He realized he'd spent the entire evening asking, "Why am I feeling this?" But he had never asked, "What do I need right now?" So he didn't fix anything. He didn't force himself to stop crying. He just stayed there. Maybe you've had a night like that. An ordinary day. Nothing obviously wrong. And then your eyes fill with tears. Maybe you'll understand why tomorrow, maybe next month, maybe years from now, or maybe you'll never know exactly. And that's okay. You don't have to be afraid of a feeling just because you haven't understood it yet. Sometimes the mind explains things slowly. Sometimes the body speaks first. And sometimes the tears aren't proof that you're falling apart. They're proof that for one quiet moment, you finally stopped pretending you weren't carrying anything. So the next time you cry for no reason, don't ask, "What's wrong with me?" Ask, "What might I finally be ready to feel?" And if there isn't an answer, just breathe. Sometimes that's where understanding begins.